Listen to this headline. Rock Hard not returning to TNT market. There should be a duh after that statement. Of course they're not returning. I said this very early on when the government ran quickly. TCL raised their prices. Let's do a quick recap. So Rockhard was here first. They weren't here first, of course. TCL was here first. Rockhard entered the market somewhere in 2016 and they were selling cement at a lower price. The competition was drawing down the cement price for TCL and Rockhard. They were in a race going down to the bottom. Ryan Ramhit, he spoke in this article too. Yes, they were on a race going down to the bottom. And that was doing well for the customer in Trinidad and Tobago. That was good for us. But the government joined in because first the government was saying that they're affecting the local economy and TCL is benefiting the local economy. So they are going to put some difficulties in the way of Rockhard. So they tried something, Rockhard sued, Rockhard won, Rockhard was still performing. Then this year the pandemic came about and the government was like, yes, this is the moment. The government told us that they were doing this to raise funds in the pandemic. This was the reason they said it was to raise funds in the pandemic. So they were attempting to tax Rockhard so that they would get some more funds to fuel the difficult times in this pandemic. Well, that didn't work because Rockhard just left the market and they didn't get any money from Rockhard. And then the obvious happened. TCL raised their price when Rockhard was chased out of the market. TCL predictably raised their prices. And when TCL raised their price, the government, being so caring for all of us in Trinidad and Tobago, they rushed out there. They rushed out there to get something done. And what they did was they lowered the taxes that they raised to chase Rockhard out. They lowered back those taxes and they raised the quotas again to allow you to get in some more cement. Hoping and saying, the Minister of Trade said that there were 4 people already lined up for this market. Let's see how it goes. Embattled cement importer Rockhard Distributors Limited has no intention of returning to the domestic market, despite a statement by Trade and Industry Minister Paula Gopi-Skoon that 4 companies could soon import cement, bringing competition to the market to offset the 15% price hike from Trinidad Cement Limited. The price increase took effect yesterday, and in a message, TCL gave the usual excuse. They have been absorbing price increases for too long, and there was nothing they could do anymore. They had to increase prices. But it's so strange that if there was competition, they somehow would have figured out some way to absorb all these price increases, and I'm sure their prices would have remained the same. So strange. It is so strange. In August, Rockhard closed its doors due to the import duties and implemented restrictions in the domestic market. Speaking with the Express last Friday, Managing Director of Rockhard Distributors, Ryan Ramhit, said the minister's announcement that increased competition would keep cement prices in check is too little, too late. This is the managing director of Rockhard speaking. When I was asking and begging the government for their support, when I entered the market in 2016, nobody took me on and a whole host of restrictions started arising with the company. I wish whoever cement importer or manufacturer decides to set up shop in Trinidad all the best. Ramhit said discussions may take place with the government if it decides to work with Rockhard Distributors by giving the cement importer what it has been asking for. What he has said he is asking for is a level playing field. He doesn't want help. He doesn't need the government's incentives to sprinkle a little bit of incentive there to come. He says he could do it on the free open market. He doesn't want the government's help. He just doesn't want their hindrance. The company has never asked for any incentives, which we all know that TCL has been getting a whole host of incentives. If for some strange reason the government decides to go back with duties from 0 to 5% and have no quota or restrictions, I would really have to think long and hard if we would re-enter the market, simply because this administration has been very volatile and very unpredictable when it comes to Rockhard's business, he explained. I said this, and I think it may have been my first live last week. I didn't even know this was his stance yet, but I could speak. I could predict for what a businessman would say. I could guess that. Listen, if I'm a businessman, and my business model, bear in mind, when businessmen are making investments, many times the initial investment may have them in the red for a year, 2 years. They're looking at a longer term. They're looking at a much longer term in order to really be profitable. So if I'm thinking as a businessman and I'm saying, okay, well, I'm going to invest in this market. If I'm Wendy and I'm a pastel maker and I want to expand my pastel making business to, let's say, Barbados, and you want to get into Barbados and make some pastels in Barbados, and you decide, okay, I'm going there. And when you get there, the Barbados Prime Minister decides, well, she's going to tax you on all your cornmeal. So your cornmeal price goes up by 2. And you decide, okay, well, you raise your price a little bit and work around somehow, and you're still fighting up in the market. Then they double your beef price. So now your cornmeal and your beef expensive. So you're struggling out here trying to make a pastel out of flour and chicken instead, and making a chicken pie. If you see that happening to your pastel business and you say, okay, well, I'm bussing in Barbados, you leave. And then when you leave, they drop the duties on the cornmeal, they drop the taxes on the beef and tell you, no, come back now, come back now. Would you really go back? No, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. How do you expect Rockhard to look at this market and think, you know what? This would be a safe investment for me? Because the last time when I was here, it was a safe investment for me. No. I cannot see how a company like Rockhard would be looking at this government and deciding that this country would be a safe investment. And now, tell me what that does to the country on a whole when the government shows by its actions that they're chasing away investment. And not just chasing away investment, as in some big company that's going to come here and build a big factory and build a big business, and it doesn't benefit the Trinidadians. No. In this case, in this specific case, the company that was here was about bringing competition in our markets. And as I keep saying, part of the reason that some people were pushing, they were trying to say that TCL is local. But no, TCL is Mexican. TCL is owned by the Mexicans. So the profits of TCL still leaves the country. So shouldn't it be in that case, if the profit either way is leaving the country, shouldn't it then be that maybe it would make more sense that we balance that, we get some competition in the place so that the benefits trickle down to the consumers. We get lower prices. You build your house for cheaper. It just doesn't seem to make sense for me. Ramhit noted that TNT is the only country in the region that was not supportive when another cement competitor came on the market. In Guyana, the correct rate of duty was 15%, and their government realized what competition will go along with them experiencing a construction boom. So they dropped the rate of duty from 15% to 5% earlier this year, and the same goes for the other countries in the region. And here's the thing also. We aren't the only people in the region. We were the big fish in the region for a very long time. But if you pay attention to Guyanese news, Guyana is growing leaps and bounds. And if investment companies, if companies, even Caribbean companies, because this guy, Ryan Ramhit, he doesn't look like some American businessman. He looks pretty local. He very likely would be Trinidadian. So we're talking about companies that have visionaries from in the Caribbean, from in our country. And if the case is that our country seems unfriendly to new business, our country, and when people talk about the 1% in our country, this is where I could lean in somewhat into that. I don't like the 1% talk too much, but I could lean into the fact that it does seem to me, and this is my main critique for example, the PNM. This critique is my critique that goes for the PNM more than the UNC. I have my criticisms in large bags for the UNC, but my criticism for the PNM seems like the PNM usually, when they get into power, they lean into the old money kind of side of life. The people who were there and have been benefiting from the general setup of Trinidad for the longest while, they continue benefiting under the PNM government. The PNM seems experts at maintaining the status quo. It's going to be just as it has always been. But here's the thing. As the world becomes smaller, as the Caribbean itself becomes smaller, if I am a businessman, I would like to start a business. I would like to start the pastel business with Wendy. And it seems like Trinidad is trying to fight down my business. Then I would go to Guyana, because Guyana right now seems to be opening up very wide, and Guyana right now has recently found oil and gas. So they would be making their own money, and it seems like Guyana's government right now they're just opening the doors to new investment. So what is going to happen if we have an unfriendly government in Trinidad and a promising market right next door in Guyana? What do you think is going to happen to a lot of our business investment?